How's it going? It's Nathan Hawken here. Now, I have a client who is very educated, he's done his PhD, and he went and lived overseas for a number of years, came back, started his own business based around the experience that he had overseas in regards to international relations. Since he started his business, he's been really struggling to get it up and running and make enough of an income, a living from it, and build it to what he really wants to do. Hence, that's why he reached out to me. Now, after some of the work that we've done, the goal that he set for himself is to make 160K in his business, which seems good. It seems like a decent goal, but this goal is not based on his potential. This goal came about because that's what he calculated he needs to survive. Now, a goal like this, as good as it can sound, it can also be quite problematic because it's a survival-based goal, and you get stuck in a survival goal trap with these type of goals, which are only about surviving and maybe having a little bit extra. Because when we broke down the goal, that 160K came from, that's going to be the amount of money that he can make in his business to be able to hire a few people, so they're doing a lot more of the grunt work for him, and he'll have a little bit more money left over to enjoy the life or the quality of life that he wants with the activities that he does and the hobbies that he has and those type of things. So we're not talking about massive business here, global domination or anything like that. This is a goal that he set himself based on what he currently knows. Now, my client is a very analytical thinker, very analytical mind. And that's where goals like this come from. And this is where the challenge can really be, because when you're in the analytical mind and your conscious mind is giving you all the rational reasons and answers for why you want certain things and why you want certain goals and how much money you can make, because there is a hidden cost with this type of thinking. When you're in a survival trap or survival mode type of thinking, where it's just about surviving, having a little bit money left over for jam or whatever it is, your survival starts to cap your actual potential of what is possible for you and your business. And something I asked him, and this is what I would ask anyone who comes to me with a particular goal, or we finally get a particular goal out of them, is that enough? Is that really enough? Now, my client, he doesn't want to have this massive, huge business, right? Which is perfectly fine. I've got many people I speak to who don't have a huge goal like that because that's just not what they want. And that's perfectly fine. You don't always have to have a big world domination, global expansion type of goal. It's about what's going to be best for you and what's going to work for you. But I always have to challenge that thinking. As a coach, it's my job to challenge your thinking. And I always have to ask that question, is that enough? Is that really enough? And typically the response that comes back is no. But the challenge here is bridging the gap from being in survival mode and having that, say, 160K goal to what is actually possible after that. If anything were possible, what would that actually be? The gap between those two is so big that it's really difficult to think about. If you don't know who I am, my name is Nathan Hawken. Thank you for joining me on this video today. I am a coach. I've been coaching for over a decade now with a various array of people, from banking executives to former Olympic athletes to business owners, entrepreneurs, and also other coaches. And one of the things that I've noticed in many of the conversations that I've had with people from all those different areas is that they can have small thinking when it comes to the goals that they want and what they think they want versus what they actually want deep down inside their true core, and then helping them bridge the gap between those two. What happens when we think about the things that we want? And that's a big question I always will ask of pretty much anyone I speak to, particularly coaching clients, is what do you want? What do you really want? This is hard because the majority of people don't actually think about what they want. They spend more time thinking about what's not working and what they don't want anymore in their life. But when you ask them what do they actually want, it can get very quiet because they haven't spent enough time or had enough practice really thinking about that, really thinking about and giving themselves permission to think about it and like, what do I actually want for myself? If anything were possible, what do I want? And so when you ask these questions, and when I'm asking these questions of my clients, it's really difficult for them to come up with because they can't visualize that in their mind. Now, I'm not going to go off on a tangent about visualization or anything like that. This is more about being able to think about what is possible for you rather than just thinking about what you need right now. Because it's easy to think about what you need. You can look around at your life right now. You can look at your business and think, well, what do I need here? What do I need financially? What do I need spiritually? What do I need personally? and all those things in between. So it's very easy to think about that, and you can think about what's not working. But it can be very difficult to think about something that you've never experienced before, because you've got no frame of reference. You've never had it before. You've never made $1 million before. You've never hiked across the Mount Everest or something like that. Because you've never done it before, it can be really difficult to picture it in your mind. Think about it as something that you could possibly experience and have at some stage. Your analytical mind needs a proof of concept, so to speak, in order to start believing it, to start thinking it as an actual possibility for you. And because you don't have that proof of concept, your past experiences become a ceiling for your future vision. It starts to cap your thinking in terms of what's a possibility for you. So as an example, if you go back to my client there, set a 160K goal for himself, for his business, right? Because that's something that he can calculate himself, particularly with an analytical mind like his. He can sit down, calculate it, think about it, like, you know what? That's possible because this is how much money I want to make for myself. This is how much money it's going to cost to hire this person. It's going to cost this much money to hire the next person. But anything beyond that starts to feel like a fantasy, right? If I said, well, what about 200K? It's like, well, what would I do with that extra 40K? I don't know. And so because of his past experiences, he's starting to cap his thinking based on what he's had before, rather than seeing what's beyond that, what's in the next room above the ceiling. So if you find yourself being in that position where you've set yourself a goal, but it just doesn't feel like quite enough, or you're not being challenged on that goal or stretched beyond that goal, there is a 4-step framework that you can use which will help you go beyond. And it's the incremental expansion method, where you can really start to just go beyond your current level of thinking, go beyond your current goals, and start really tapping into the world of possibility for you and what you're really trying to accomplish. Step 1 is to acknowledge your current analytical framework that you've been using, which has got you to this point. So you have to honor the logic that got you to here. Now, the tools that you've got, that you've been using up until this point, have led you to this place, this point in time. But they're not necessarily going to be the best tools to help you as you move beyond. But you have to honor what's brought you here already. Honor the logic that you've gone through that has led you to this point. Take a moment just to really reflect on the logic that you've currently been using and have been using up until this point, and honor the fact that it has led you to here in the position that you're currently in. The next step is to find evidence of the next level possibility. So look for proof points, one step ahead. Look for the next thing that you can do. The next thing that isn't just so totally outlandish and out there that it's too big to even take, but look at the proof of the next step that you can take. What is one step that will take you forward, which will move you towards that next level? So start looking for those proof points. Then we go to step 3, and step 3 is to expand through questions, not declarations. Now, this is one of my favorite parts because I love asking deep questions of myself and my clients. But if you think about what you actually want, if you think about a big, audacious goal that just seems so big that it's almost impossible, we have to scale it back a little bit and not just think about the number, not just think about the financial number or the big goal, but we have to ask a deeper question than that. So say, for example, you set yourself a goal of earning 300K in the next 2 years, which is more than you've ever earned before. You ask yourself the question, what would that 300K make possible? What could I do by making that 300K? What would that mean about me if I'm able to make that 300K? Instead of declaring to yourself, I've got to make 300K, I've got to make 300K, that's the goal, I have to make it. You switch it and ask yourself questions. What would that really mean for me? That's exactly what I did with my client when I asked him to set a goal. 160 was pushing a little bit beyond already, but it was still in that survival safe mode. So I asked him, all right, if you've made that 160K, what would that mean for you? What can you now do that you couldn't do before by not having made this? When you start to ask those questions, you're taking the pressure off yourself from the actual figure goal or whatever it is you're working towards, and you're bringing it more into a reality. You're tapping into more of an emotional level within inside yourself. I mean, what would that actually mean for you if you've made 300K in that 2 years? Really powerful questions. And it brings it back to why you're actually doing it. not the thing that you set out to do. Then step 4 is to build vision bridges. So we have to create those logical pathways to expanded outcomes. We have to think about, okay, so if this is what I'm working towards, what do I need to do to get it? What do I need to improve? What skills do I need to develop? What do I need to work on? If I want to be this type of person, and this is how it's going to make me feel, like what would be possible? Now it comes to what's a pathway that's going to lead me to that? Once again, it takes it away from the big audacious goal and brings it more into actionable steps that you can get started on straight away. If this is what I want, right, I need to start here, I need to move here in 3 months, and I need to do this. And how's that going to make me feel along the way? So you're building these vision bridges to actually see the pathway there, rather than it being this kind of black fog or mist that's in front of you, where you know the goal's over there, but you've got no idea how to get through the fog and get to it. By going through this framework, what this is actually doing is moving you beyond the survival mode, moving you past the survival goal and into the goals and realms of possibility, because it takes you from, well, what do I need now? Or what do I need in the next 12 months to what becomes possible? When you take that pressure off yourself, when you flip the switch and get out of survival mode based on what's happening now and start thinking more into the possibility mode, you will automatically begin to feel better about what you're working towards. And then the big goal that you've never really thought about before starts to become an actual possibility, rather than just a big scary goal that you think you plucked out of nowhere. When you start to expand your vision around what becomes possible, and you start thinking about the ways to actually get it, this is going to serve your analytical thinking much better, because your analytical mind starts working towards how to make it happen. Now that you've thought about what you actually want to make happen, you start thinking about the pathways to get there, and this is where your analytical mind is going to love, because it's going to think about all the different ways you can get there and the things you can do. Then all you have to do is just figure out which one feels best, which one's going to work, which one's going to get me there in the best possible way, so I'm feeling good about what I'm doing. And that's the difference that makes all the difference, because there's a difference between realistic and limited. A lot of things are very realistic. In our minds, we may not see them that way, but that's only because we're limiting ourselves. It's only because we're hitting the ceiling. So when we start to think beyond the ceiling, when we start to look beyond the fog, and we start taking those steps to move it, or to move through it, then things become more realistic. Your reality starts to get created based around where you're actually moving to. And so imagine your crazy possibility, that thing that you've been thinking about starts to feel more realistic. Imagine that big crazy goal starts to feel more realistic. What would that mean for you? How would that make you feel? To finish this video, I want to ask you a couple of questions. And these are going to be tough questions for you to think about, but these will really help you start to see beyond and start to help you move towards that bigger goal. What is one goal that you've set for yourself that covers all your needs and keeps you in survival mode, but totally ignores your potential? If you had to double your current realistic goal, what would become possible for you? They're big questions, I know, but you might even surprise yourself with the answers. Leave a comment below with your answers. I would love to hear what comes up for you. And if you find yourself struggling with this and you can't come up with your answers, or you find yourself struggling to just see beyond your own limitations, reach out to me for a conversation. I'd love to have a chat with you. Maybe there's some work we can do, or maybe there's just one question which will help unlock everything for you. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you on the next one.